The story begins with a woman being held captive by a man. She has a toy with her which is actually a musical horse toy. Meanwhile, we see the man, who has a large sum of money. The woman is clearly distressed, and it's evident she's in a terrible state and has been subjected to abuse by the man. She's locked in a cabin-like room with only one window. A fierce storm rages outside. Lightning strikes, and a tree branch hits the window, shattering it. This gives the woman an opportunity to escape, and she tries to flee. However, the man discovers her escape attempt and chases after her. As she runs, she encounters a child who is actually a ghostly, demonic-looking child. This ghostly child blocks her path, causing her to stop. The woman then tells the man to stay away from her, saying that he has used her enough and she won't let him do it anymore. She declares that she will never forgive him for what he has done, not even after death. At that moment, lightning strikes her, killing her instantly. The scene then shifts to a village where we learn that several women have been disappearing, along with people's money. It's obvious that the man is responsible for these disappearances. People in the village frequently complain about these incidents to the village chief, but the chief is completely indifferent. He would listen to everyone, but he took everything very lightly, and recently a woman had gone missing. A man came to report it. The village chief said that she must have run away with her lover, and that her family wouldn't know about it. Meanwhile, we see a woman named Amber. Amber lived with her 2 children, a son named Aji and her older daughter, Putri. To support her family, Amber worked for a woman named Sita, who owned a restaurant. We then noticed that Sita was also experiencing a lot of money going missing, and because of this, she had fired several employees. However, she hadn't fired Amber because she felt sorry for her and because Amber had 2 children. Next, we see Amber's daughter, Putri, who wanted to do something for her family, and Putri didn't want to spend her entire life depending on someone else's charity. When Amber's mother comes home, she talks to Amber, and Putri expresses her desire to leave the village and get training for a job. But Amber was strongly against it because there were only 3 members left in their family, and she wanted them to stay together. Amber didn't want to be separated from her children at all, but Putri had made up her mind that she would leave and work hard for her family. However, her mother flatly refused, which annoyed Putri a little. Later, Aji is writing something on the wall when Putri scolds him. The scene then shifts, where Putri shares all this with her friend Kiki, who was her best friend. Meanwhile, we see Amber at work when Sita approaches her. She tells Amber that a lot of money is missing and that she will only be able to pay her salary next month. This shocks Amber because she desperately needed the money. After this, we see Amber at the bus stop. She hears a sound. Looking in the direction of the sound, she sees a large lizard, which then runs away. There, Amber also finds a bag full of money. Seeing this, Amber immediately takes the bag and brings it to the village chief's house. She knocks on the door. A man named Tumbal comes out. He actually works for the village chief. Amber asks him to call the village chief, and Tumbal does so. But after he leaves, Amber stares at the money. She knew that this money could fulfill all her needs. A little later, when the village chief arrives, he finds no one there because Amber had already left, meaning Amber had kept the money for herself. The scene then shifts to night, where we see Amber. She was muttering, black chimney," in her sleep. Her son wakes up hearing her voice. He gets up and looks around. There was a tub lying there with a crab in it, which he had caught earlier that day. He places the tub on the table, and meanwhile we see the ghostly child in the house. Then Amber, sleepwalking, approaches him, still muttering black chimney. Just then the daughter comes there and attends to her mother, but she had a very high fever. She calls out loudly to her mother, waking her up. After this, the daughter leaves her mother in her room and then goes to get a cold compress to put on her mother's forehead. Then she sees the same tub that Aji had placed on the table earlier, but now it was on the ground, and no one had any idea how it got there. The water inside the tub was swirling around. This seemed very strange to the daughter. But then the daughter sees the reflection of the ghostly child in the water, and it was right behind her. She gets very scared seeing this. She then tells Kiki about all this. Kiki says that her mother probably went for a walk, and then Kiki suggests that she take her mother to the hospital. Just then, Kiki's brother Nurdin and her cousin Cheche arrive. Cheche is smitten with the daughter and tries to flirt with her. The next day, the daughter can't find her mother anywhere and goes to look for her in her room. But only the money was there, nothing else. Then she goes to Kiki. Kiki says that they should tell the village chief about this, and they do. Kiki, Cheche, and the daughter go to the village chief. He says that her mother isn't lost. In fact, she had been fired from her job by Sita, and that's why she went to the city to find work. And her mother had forbidden her from telling the daughter and Aji about it. Since it was nighttime, she left for the city overnight. But all of this seemed very weird, because the lady who didn't want to send her daughter to the city, how could she herself leave her children alone like this? This meant something was wrong, and after hearing this, they returned home. However, the daughter couldn't accept what the chief had said because all of her mother's belongings were still there. She had also left behind a large sum of money, more than her salary, which could have been useful in the city. The daughter had now confirmed that her mother had indeed been fired from her job, but even so, she would never leave without saying anything. Meanwhile, Aji was drawing something on the wall and the daughter stopped him. He then said that his mother had been saying, black chimney, the day before. Hearing this, the daughter understood that black chimney referred to the factory, and there was only one factory in the village, owned by a man named Mr. Carson. Che asks who Carson is. The daughter explains that he was a wealthy man who had set up a factory in the forest many years ago. But now no one goes to that forest. Shea asks why. Kiki explains that it's because Mr. Carson kept a Tuyul, and the Tuyul is actually an urban legend, an entity that looks like a small child. It is believed that many people control Tuyuls and use them to commit evil deeds, such as stealing money. It steals for its master. However, controlling a Tuyul is very difficult because even a small mistake can cause it to kill its own master. Kiki also mentions that there is a Black Kuntilanak in that forest. Yes, a dark and evil Kuntilanak, and you've all probably heard of the Kuntilanak, which is the ghost of a woman in white. But the black and evil Kuntilanak is far more dangerous than the white one. It's very vengeful. Hearing this, Che gets quite scared. Anyway, they now decide to go to the factory, but Cheche didn't want to go there because he was quite scared. Then Kiki somehow convinces him to go. Well, after that they leave, and Aji stays at home. They reach the forest by bicycle. Meanwhile, Tambong comes and tells the chief that they have gone to the forest and that he saw it with his own eyes. Well, hearing this, the chief gets very angry with him and beats him severely, which shows that the chief was not the kind of person he pretended to be. He was quite cruel. Anyway, then Tumbal tells him that Aji is still at home. They can pick him up. Meanwhile, we see Aji, who was drawing something on the wall when suddenly the lights go out, after which he lights the candles. Just then, he hears a sound again, which was the sound of his toy. He goes to investigate and sees someone playing with his toy, and the person was under the bed. Seeing this, he goes towards him, and there is the same ghostly child who is called Tuyul. Aji thinks that it must be a child who has come here, and so he extends his hand towards him, but Tuyul starts pulling him in. Now Aji quickly frees his hand and runs away, but Tuyul chases after him. Just then, the village chief suddenly arrives, who had come to catch Aji. Meanwhile, we see the three of them together, and they are moving forward. There was a lock on the factory gate. There was also an axe there, and Cheb tries to break the lock with the axe. But then Ki receives a call from Nuruddin. She lies to Nuruddin, saying she's in the village. However, Chechip's loud voice could be heard in the background, which makes Nuruddin realize that Ki and the others are in the old factory. Ki then starts saying, "Hello, hello," pretending she can't hear him, and hangs up the call. Chip had been trying to break the lock for a long time, but he couldn't. Then Putri takes the axe from him and breaks the lock with a single blow. Chechep was left speechless. After this, they go inside, where a swarm of bats flies past them. They continue on and start looking for Amber. They come to an office where there was a picture of Carson. There was also a photograph of the village chief. This meant that he used to work for Carson. Meanwhile, some sounds were coming from a box, and the box was shaking, which frightened the three of them. They bravely open the box, and a bat flies out. They were quite surprised by all this. They then move on from there. But Kiki tells Chechep to bring the axe. Chechep asks if she's going to kill ghosts with an axe, but Kiki replies, "What if there's a human here?" Hearing this, he goes to get the axe. He was just picking up the axe when he hears some sounds. Following the sound, he finds some black magic items there. Meanwhile, while they were searching for Amber, Kiki found a photograph which actually belonged to Carson. There was also a house in the background of the photo, and this house had to be somewhere nearby. Just then, Chechep arrived and tried to take them with him. He led them to a place where there was a basement. Upon entering the basement, they found a lot of money and several photographs of women. But the shocking thing was that among these photographs was one of Amber. Now, Putri was clueless as to why this photo was there and what the whole situation was about. While they were pondering this, a woman fell in front of them, and this woman was actually a spirit. Seeing this, they started to run away. But then several more spirits of women started falling in the same way, indicating that they had all been killed there, and they all started attacking them. Basically, they had become vengeful spirits, but somehow they managed to escape from the basement. Now Cecep asked them to go home, but Putri didn't want to go anywhere without her mother. Cecep tried to reason with her, saying that he had also been in a similar situation and had lost his friends. But this was about Putri's mother, and she had never properly talked to her mother, and now she wouldn't leave without finding her. Putri told them that if they wanted to leave, they could, but she wouldn't leave without her mother. Then Kiki said that she would stay there with her best friend, Putri. Cecep then said that he would go outside and get help, meaning he was going to bring the villagers because the situation was truly serious. So Kiki sent him to get help. Afterward, Kiki and Putri leave to go to Carsono's house. We then see Cecep, who is about to leave when Tambong attacks him from behind, knocking him unconscious. The chief was also there, and he had already captured Aji, but Aji bites his hand and tries to escape. However, he catches Aji again. Now Putri hears Aji's cries and tells Kiki about it, but both of them take the sound quite lightly. After this, they both go inside the house and find a very large pool. They start searching the place and find photographs of the chief and his wife. On the other hand, we see Cecep and Aji tied up, which Tambong had done. The chief tells Tambong to keep an eye on them. Now we see Kiki and Putri searching for Amber separately. Kiki finds the horse toy, which she turns on and then starts taking pictures of it. While taking pictures, she sees a shadow that appears with the camera flash, so she keeps clicking pictures. With each click, the spirit becomes clearer to her. But in the meantime, Putri arrives, and she is quite scared. Putri's arrival makes her think that perhaps the spirit is visible to her and has touched her. Anyway, after this, they start searching again and find a lot of money and some books. This was the same money that was disappearing from the village, and they also find a book about Tuyul. It stated that Tuyul remains active as long as his family members are alive, and Tuyul needed a lady to do his work. And it was also written here about his weakness, which was mirrors. But they hadn't seen any mirrors anywhere in the entire house yet. Obviously, this was done so that Tuyul's power wouldn't diminish. It's also said about Tuyul that he remains alive as long as his stories are told. That is, he can disappear, but killing him isn't easy. After reading all this, they understood one thing. The village chief was behind all of this. They go upstairs, where they find more stairs leading further up. Putri starts climbing them, while Kiki stays behind. Shockingly, after Putri leaves, Kiki sees Cecep, but we know that Cecep was tied up. Anyway, when Putri reaches the top, she finds her mother locked in a room. She frees her mother, and then comes back down. But she doesn't find Kiki there. Then we see Nuruddin, who had reached the factory, and he finds the village chief there, which made him quite happy because he wasn't alone anymore. But he didn't know how evil the village chief was. And then suddenly the chief kills him. On the other hand, we see Kiki, who had followed Cecep into a room. As soon as she approaches Cecep, he disappears. This means it wasn't Cecep at all, but an illusion. Anyway, she sees a lot of mirrors there. This means all the mirrors in the house were present in that room. Kiki then starts to leave, but then she sees herself in the mirror, covered in blood, and then a hand emerges from the mirror behind her. This means she was seeing her future. Now that hand repeatedly slams Kiki's head against the mirror, killing her. And the situation here had become exactly as she had seen in her reflection. And then we see that all of this was done by the evil Kuntilanak. And we all know that Kuntilanak is the queen of the mirror world. She comes from there, and that's why the mirrors were placed here, and Tuyul was the exact opposite. His weakness was mirrors. After a while, Putri and Ember arrive there. They had come looking for Kiki, and seeing her in such a state, Putri breaks down and starts crying a lot. Then Ember comforts her and takes her away. Meanwhile, Cecep was tied up, but he somehow frees himself and Aji and slowly starts to leave. Outside, Tambang was there, who gets a hint that they have escaped. They somehow manage to hide from him. Meanwhile, Ember and Putri had both come outside, but the chief was also there behind them, so Putri hides and the chief catches Ember. Then Putri attacks him. Here, Putri was holding her own, but the chief was overpowering her. During their fight, the chief's locket falls from his neck, which was quite special. Now, taking advantage of the situation, they both run away and hide, when suddenly the evil Kuntilanak arrives, who had come to kill the chief. Now the chief quickly starts looking for the locket and holds it up in front of Kuntilanak, which forces Kuntilanak to leave. And obviously, seeing this, you must have understood that the chief had this locket made specifically for his protection. Anyway, now the chief tells them to come out. He shows them Aji's glasses and says that Aji is with him, and if they don't come out, he will kill her. Now, Amber tells her daughter that she has to go with the chief, and once she surrenders herself to him, the daughter will have to go and find Aji today. Saying this, Amber surrenders herself to the chief, who then takes her away. This implies there was something special about Amber that the chief wanted. Then we see Cecep, who had escaped into a room where several mannequins covered with sheets were standing. Suddenly, all the mannequins begin to move, advancing towards him. Cecep removes the sheet from one of the mannequins, but there is no one underneath. Then all the sheets fall off, one by one. All the mannequins are empty except for one. Cecep removes the sheet from this last mannequin, revealing a strange-looking figure. Suddenly, a grinding machine nearby switches on, and its large blade comes straight towards Cecep. But then Tambang, who was searching for him, intervenes and is killed. Taking advantage of the situation, a frightened Cecep escapes. Then we see Aji hiding in a drum. As he emerges from the drum, he sees his mother, but without his glasses, he can't see clearly. But we know it wasn't his mother. It was Kuntilanak who had taken his mother's form. She was calling him to her, but it was a trap. Suddenly, several heavy objects begin to fall from above, which were meant to kill Aji. Just as he was about to fall, Cecep intervened and saved him, but all the goods fell on him, and he was killed on the spot. Then the daughter arrived and was devastated to see Cecep dead. Her best friend was gone, and now Cecep was also gone. Now Aji and the daughter were together. They couldn't figure out how to stop the chief, and if they wanted to kill Tuyul, the chief had to die because Tuyul was the chief's master. Perhaps Carsono used to do this before, and the chief later adopted this practice for his own benefit. Now the daughter had an idea. If they wanted to kill the chief, they would have to somehow remove the locket from his neck. In fact, something else might have happened. Perhaps the chief himself killed Carsono and took the locket to gain protection from everything, and then he summoned Tuyul so that all the money would come to him. Anyway, the daughter now had a way to remove the locket from the chief's neck. She had an idea, and she needed Aji's help. Then we see Amber, who is holding a piece of glass. Just then, the chief arrives, and she asks him what he wants from her. The chief approaches her and tells her that she is nothing but a sacrifice, and this sacrifice will bring the chief money. Basically, Tuyul feeds on women, and that's why the chief was kidnapping all the women and bringing them here and handing them over to Tuyul. That was the reason the women were disappearing, and that's why the money was also disappearing. And he was about to do the same thing to Amber. That's why the pictures of those women were there. They were all going to be victims, sacrifices for Tuyul. Now Amber attacks him with a piece of glass, but the chief overpowers her and then calls Tuyul. After that, he leaves. When he comes out, he sees Aji, who runs away from him. The chief chases him, but he hides inside a wardrobe. There, a spirit appears before him, the spirit of the lady who was one of his victims. Aji tries to remain calm, and after the chief leaves, he comes out of the wardrobe and starts looking for his mother. He quickly goes upstairs where he finds Amber. He frees his mother, and just then the chief goes into the room with the money, where the money is burning, and the daughter had started the fire. She attacks the chief from behind to take his locket, but the chief is quite strong, so he throws her away. Just then, Amber also arrives, and both mother and daughter start attacking the chief. But in the meantime, the chief attacks Amber, severely injuring her. But still, the mother and daughter don't give up. They somehow manage to take the locket from the chief's neck and lock him up there. Now, all three of them are leaving, but Tuyul catches Aji. The daughter makes her mother sit down somewhere and goes to get Aji. Just then, the chief hears the sound of the horse toy, and then Kuntilanak appears. And shockingly, it is revealed that this Kuntilanak is the same lady from the beginning who was struck by lightning. And actually, she is none other than the chief's wife. Yes, meaning the chief didn't even spare his own wife. Now, the spirit of the chief's wife, who has transformed into the evil Kuntilanak, starts moving towards him for revenge. At that moment, the daughter was fighting Tuyul, but Tuyul was overpowering her. On the other hand, Kuntilanak lifted the chief into the air and killed him. Well, since the master was dead, Tuyul was also supposed to be finished. And that's exactly what happened. Tuyul disappeared from there. But as I told you, Tuyul cannot be truly destroyed as long as people keep talking about him. This means that if someone else summons him, Tuyul can return. Anyway, the daughter and Aji were now safe. After this, they went to their mother, who was taking her last breaths. Before dying, Ember asked her daughter Putri to take care of Aji. After that, she breathed her last in front of them. Although these siblings couldn't save their mother, they did save the other women of the village from becoming victims. The movie ends here. So friends, this was the story of the Pamali Tumbal film.